Who's got it better than us?
Nobody!
Robert is being chased, thrown on the run, and it is caught. Touchdown, Keenan Allen. What a great...
My goal is not to break you. My goal is to make you harder to break.
Comes back, number 6.
Huge sack by Joey Bosa.
Touchdown! 90-yard touchdown!
Off at the 8-yard line by Derwin James.
Sets his speed, takes a shot downfield, has Knighton. Caught! Touchdown! Chargers!
Boys, grab your lunch boxes and go attack this day with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind.
Oh, boys. Yet another Chargers free agency period. With top 5 cap space league-wide, Chef Hortiz is dumpster diving and sitting on his hands, and the fan base is irascible. Is Hortiz the villain, or is he the genius? Welcome to the Thunder Down Under Chargers podcast. I am Andy, and with me, Jack and Alistair, and collectively, guys, we are going to do our best to work out what exactly is going through the Chargers camp through the first week of free agency. Jack, welcome, man. Welcome to your first show. Welcome to your first show for season 2026. It's lovely to have you back.
It's good to be back. Off a little short hiatus. You boys did the two-man show very well. Not that I've listened to it, because I was actually completely removing myself from it. But no, I'm back and I'm refreshed, lucky to be back. And ready to get into things, which is very unlike what the Chargers front office seems to have been doing in the first week. Not much is going through the Chargers front office other than a few tumbleweeds and maybe a couple of flurries of old dust that we're used to seeing. No, I shouldn't say that. That's being a little bit harsh. But I cannot wait to get into it, Alistair, because I have some interesting questions for you.
Okay. Very Aaron Rodgers-esque. I should say, to start a new season, Jack. When you have time away from the show, you're completely switching off, tune out, re-energize, and come back in ready to go. Pop. And Andy, we've already had some listeners say they don't understand what we're talking about because of our accents. You're dropping irascible to start the show. I love it, but fans are angry out there. I had to post something in the middle of the week, boys, because people wanted blood. The Bold fan wanted blood. They said, guys, we have the most cap space in the league. You saw what happened to Justin Herbert last year, Andy. He got hit and battered to smithereens. Why are we not addressing this interior offensive line faster? Every big name is out the door. What the are you doing, Joe Hortiz? Start us off. How do you want to dive into this show?
Well, man, I mean, that's the $1 million question, right? We can talk about bringing back Khalil Mack. We can talk about signing some speed in the running back room. But the big question surrounds what is going on between Mike McDaniel, his new scheme, Joe Hortiz's approach to this free agency, and why is it so disjointed from what the Chargers fan base is yearning for? What is it that we as fans don't understand about what these guys are trying to achieve, Jack, in how this has been approached? We've brought in Alec Ingold, familiar with McDaniel, obviously, from his time in Miami, a free agent signing in, the name has just escaped me, tight end, Charlie Kolar from Baltimore.
Kolar, yep.
So you can see that we're moving into that sort of 40% of 3 tight ends that McDaniel ran last year. Miami were perennially a low, bottom 5 in terms of more than 3 wideouts on the field. So we're getting 2 backs, more blocking tight ends. Is the question now becomes, is the guard position, Jack, obsolete in McDaniel's offense?
I will perhaps address that later in my response. I do find it interesting that Mike McDaniel took the job, and why I find it interesting is that surely he would have had many suitors. We know that he would have had many suitors. He had interviews lined up. Surely that he's having a chat with Harbaugh, ownership, Hortiz to go, we've got one of the biggest cap rooms in the league. would Mike McDaniel sign if Hortiz is like, hey, by the way, we're just going to be a little bit cheap. Don't expect us to go out and sign, big names for you. You're going to have to sort of make do with what you want. I find that would be, if I was Mike McDaniel and that was me sitting in an interview, my red flags would be going up a bit and going, okay, do we really want to be successful here? So then I flip it and go, okay, well, maybe that conversation was had and they said, hey, Mike McDaniel, you can go and get whoever you want. We're going to give you a bit of a blank check. We are in the process of making sure that we hand out good contracts. We don't want to hand out big money to some older players. We want to get guys in here that fit your scheme. The Biadish contract now looks very good, in the light of day, and given how much money went to Linderbaum and things like that. The Ingold signing works, and that was something that a lot of football heads were saying that, hey, immediate upgrade to the run game, and amen, we don't have to have a dual position player in Scott Matlock. And the other one, the Kolar you mentioned, Andy, is the fact that I think he was the fifth best blocking tight end in the league last year in 2025. So clearly, those first three signings were Mike McDaniel blueprint. They just have to be almost, right? Because they're so unique. Obviously, there's a connection with Ingold at Miami, and there's obviously the Baltimore connection with Kolar. But are guards useless in Mike McDaniel's scheme? Maybe they are. Maybe they are. Who knows? Maybe Trevor Penning is going to start at guard. Maybe Trey Pipkins is going to start at guard. I just don't know. But it seems to me, Alistair, zone blocking, moving, they're going to be running, there's going to be movement, there's going to be a lot of 22s, there's going to be a lot of Ingold in the backfield. Mm-hmm. Maybe the idea of guards is not important, because McDaniel, for the first time in his career, is going to have 2 all-pro tackles on the line, when realistically he's only being used to having one of those, someone like a Trent Williams in San Francisco. Tried to give you a little bit of a sort of, you take it wherever you want to now, Alistair, but that's where I'm kind of sitting.
I'm sitting in the same spot as you guys, and you listeners out there. I can feel the anger and I understand it. I think we're the enemy partly of the Chargers' previous regime, right? Because if the Staley-Telesco approach to free agency was all in, the Joe Hortiz approach to free agency is partially in, not in. Is it in? Story of my life.
Just the tip.
Yeah, that's right. Joe Hortiz is shallowing in the GM chair. But to be serious, fans think that all in. Fans now associate trying to win a Super Bowl with going all in free agency. And the Chargers organization haven't helped themselves, because they rode that pretty heavily from a branding perspective in that year when we did sign JC Jackson and Austin Johnson and Sebastian Joseph Day and Gerald Everett and Khalil Mack. So the inverse of that is people think if you don't go all in free agency, therefore you're not trying to win a Super Bowl. But we just need to accept Joe Hortiz has a very different view on that. I know the team's got the most cap space in the league and only 5 draft picks, but they think free agency generally is a pool of guys who aren't very good, and that's why they're free agents. And you don't want to be the biggest spenders like the Titans and the Browns. And who's the other big spenders, like the Titans, the Browns, the Giants, the Commanders, Panthers. Are they teams you associate really with being great, well-run organizations? I'll leave that as rhetorical.
The Raiders.
Well, the Raiders are another one. But the flip side of that is, look at what New England did 12 months ago. They went all in. They spent heaps of money, and they went from 4 wins to 14. So, look, and that is a well-run, successful organization. So
it is
obviously an outlier to the rest of them that you named.
The Bears too.
The Bears went hard.
Spent
so
quite a lot of money.
That's a great comment too, because the Bears did what a lot of fans would like to see, which is we have a very clear weakness. It's interior offensive line, and at the start of free agency, you're going to see bang, 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 Drew Dolman, Jonah Jackson, and Joe Tooney, sorted. Whereas we saw Sayamalu fly off the board, and David Edwards, and even the guys who were cheap cut players who you could get without any impact on the compensatory free agent formula, Elijah Vera Tucker, and Elton Jenkins. These are guys that, so I understand. I think that's why people just don't get it. I'll turn this into a question, Jack. So that's Hortiz's mantra. It's Ravens-esque that he generally is targeted about free agency, wants to build through the draft. Do you think he's been too stubborn? I mean, you're being asked this question by a stubborn man. Has he been too stubborn in his philosophy? Or is this a good thing that he's got a philosophy and only 2 years into his regime, why would he change it?
If I was to be, and I asked myself this question, and I think we asked ourselves this question, if you're being objective about this year's free agency class, it's possibly one of the worst ones in recent memory, right? It's there are no superstars out there, and generally speaking, well, other than maybe like a Linderbaum, right? But you literally have to sell your third child to afford someone like that. And look at where the Raiders are. That's another story. I would prefer to have consistency, and I know I might get criticized for this, but I would prefer to have consistency in decision making through over a period of time than rather erratic decision making from year to year. That, from a pure philosophical perspective, that's where I land. However, does that mean I don't think we could have signed at least one more interior lineman that was sitting there that looked pretty good? No, I think we possibly could have. However, benefit of the doubt, you think of how chefs create dishes. They don't add heaps of things all at once because then the flavors don't amalgamate properly. They do little things over the time. And sometimes the smallest little additions make the world of difference at the end. Now, I'm blue sky thinking here to start the pod. I'm back. I'm positive I've had a break. So that's where I lie. So, Andy, the one thing that I have questioned, though, is bringing back players that we know really, really struggled over the last 2 years, like Trey Pipkins, Trevor Penning, these guys. That's something that I can't understand. How do you feel about some of those returning signings that have happened in the last couple of days as well?
There's two that I've red flagged, and that is Trey Pipkins, as you mentioned, and linebacker Denzel Perryman. I think the three of us are pretty well in agreement with that. Surprising. I guess Pipkins, I just don't see him being the body type athletic to operate in McDaniel's scheme. But then again, there's familiarity and positional versatility, I guess. But 2 years, 10 million, 4.5 guaranteed. So hopefully none of those 2 million in additional playing time incentives come to fruition, and his cap hits aren't, too egregious, and there's a cutout for the end of this season. A little bit of surprise. Look, I just want to double back onto, talking about the consistency of Joe Hortiz, because it's been noted that he had a run at Alec Pierce, so he was willing to make the big splash. And I know, Jack, you've championed for Alec Pierce being a great weapon in the Chargers offense, undoubtedly, but overpaid for the contract that he reached to stay in Indy. Apparently the Chargers offered him more. He just wanted to stay in Indy. So Hortiz has been allegedly, noted to do that. With some of these sort of discount moves that he's made, he goes the other way and he waits for players to get cut so they don't impact the compensatory free agent formula. But there's better guys. Like there's been better guys available, even in this low kind of rated free agency class, that we could have at a backup guard spot over a Trevor Penning, but not making those moves, or not even kind of having the conviction to execute a big time deal, which isn't really in his thing. That maybe to me is just the devil's advocate talking about the odd bits of lack of consistency where he doesn't kind of back himself in to execute.
Well, he's clearly got it. He's got a hard cap ceiling on what he wants to offer. You go, Jay.
I was going to say, Alistair, this has just come to me, right? But the one thing that makes it strange for me is that a lot of these deals are back-ended. Like the Kolar signing is back-ended. The the Ingold signing is not really. The Strange signing is back ended.
Mm-hmm.
Are we having a bit of a problem in the GM room? Okay, so let's take you back to the draft. We're sitting there at 22. Okay, we're trying to get a deal done. Doesn't work. Okay, what strikes me as
should have
funny-
worked, Ryan. Go on.
What strikes me as strange is that you brought up an interesting point about Pierce, Andy, is that we offered him, apparently we offered him a bit of money. Same thing with Metcalf. We get with Pittsburgh as well. We wanted him to come. We were there, but we can't get a deal signed. So do you think that all of this stuff is back-ended because that's what we planned for, because we were hoping for a big signing? Or on top of, is there a little bit of a closing issue with Chef Hortiz? Is that we're sort of like almost there, but it's just not happening. It's an interesting little coincidence that's kind of come into fruition into my frontal lobe.
Yes,
Innuendos.
Worrying me a little
It's
bit.
innuendos ahoy tonight. Yeah, just
Yeah, I mean, you guys are setting me up to slam you, but I'm just going to leave it. Yeah, he's no good at finishing. Hortiz. I've got a lot I want to say on these topics. So I think you're right. First of all,
This
it
is
sounds
your platform.
Yeah, we've got our own podcast. We can share our views. I want to be
Your
precise.
wife won't listen.
That's for sure. They've said with Alec Pierce, we made an offer. They haven't said what it is. They've said Rashid Shaheed. Apparently, we've offered more than Seattle, or teams offered more than Seattle, and he chose to stay in Seattle. We also tried to get Evan Engram last year, and he went to the Broncos. And as Jack said, Metcalf, apparently we were in on it. That's a bit of an issue when that's happening, I think, because I think you're right, Jack. By backloading deals, it is suggesting they're trying to preserve more and more 2026 cap space to presumably bring in a couple of star players who cost a lot, not 5-6 million a year players, a couple of 15-20 million a year players. Now, I know teams backload deals generally because it is the smart thing to do when the cap increases each year. You can absorb those later hits and you can always restructure deals. But the volume of back-ended deals tells me they still want to do something with this money. And our great listener and friend Tau837 says, if you factor in all this stuff like that, they still need to pay picks and have in-season budget for injuries and trades. He reckons we've got $28.5 million in effective 2026 cap space right now. And if you think about $28.5 million to spend, that's even factoring all the stuff you just want to keep. That's a lot of money because you can keep backloading deals. So you could get, I'm just going to say a name, AJ Brown. If you wanted to get him and extend him, you could make that 2026 cap hit $15 million if you wanted to. You can get some guns for that kind of price. One thing before you take it off me, Andy, for the listeners who are probably sick of compensatory picks, I just want to explain how I think this has played out in Joe Hortiz's head. He really believes in getting compensatory picks, which end up not in this draft, they're for the next year's draft, 2027. And when free agency started the way it did, with the Commanders giving Odafe Oweh a $100 million deal, on its face, that will get you a third-round pick in 2027. Then when Zion Johnson signs for what he did at the Browns, $16.5 million a year, on its face, that will get you a fourth-round pick in 2027. At that point, Hortiz needs to have a think in his war room and talk to everyone, because at that point, every incoming free agent you decide to sign potentially cancels out one of those two compensatory picks, unless more guys like Sawyer and whoever else also sign elsewhere for a qualifying amount. So I think that's affected his strategy. I think he started thinking, I didn't think these guys would get paid that much. Now, every time I go to sign Jack Reed from the Miami Dolphins, I've got to decide, signing Jack Reed means I lose the fourth round pick for Zion in 2027. So is Jack worth a 2027 fourth rounder? I think those are the things going through Joe Hortiz's mind, Andy. Do you think he's got it right? Or do you think, like Jack, is he maybe a bit hesitant? And when you've got a guy you want, you need to close, you need to finish that deal, even if you spend a bit more than you wanted to.
Yeah, I still think that there's glaring holes, and what he has brought in guys like Dalvin Tomlinson, who's at the back end of his career, who's signed for 2 years. 1 year, $7.5 million. 6 of that's guaranteed. So that is a 1 year kind of thing. It puts a lot more pressure on the draft with 5 picks this year to solidify positions like defensive tackle, I think, because, Deshaun Hand performed pretty well. They let him go. Tito Abonia, draft pick from the Chargers in the past regime, gone. So there's a lot relying on the growth of guys like Caldwell to, fill in that starting defensive tackle role without sort of investing in it in the free agency. So he's putting a lot of sort of pressure on himself to execute this draft perfectly, while as the fans keep sort of banging the drum about having all this. I think we're sitting at $62 million in free cap space as we speak tonight. So there's a lot of cash there to spend, but he's a man of mystery, old Joe. So it's hard to know what tricks he has up his sleeve, what he's sort of gunning for. But it goes back to that actually executing a trade or executing the deal. He's done a lot of kind of low-level seventh rounders, Elijah Molden, Taylor Heineke, all those kind of things that worked out well. But you've got that money, man.
And that's why he wants the comp pick, so he can use those to trade at the right time. He figures, hey, give me an extra 2027 third and a fourth round pick. Sure. In a draft. I'll just say in a draft, everyone thinks is going to be a way better draft in 2027. GMs are trying to get picks in that draft. Hortiz is thinking then we'll be ready to attack. But Jack, is that the wrong approach when you've got Mike McDaniel for an unknown period of time? You might only have him for 1 year.
Yeah. Listen, speaking of tricks, clearly there's some kind of philosophy of just trying to get players that were drafted in the first round that haven't really worked out. Because there is a world where we start next year with 4 first-round picks on the offensive line. If Trevor Penning decides to line up at tackle with Joe Alt, Slater, and then you put Cole Strange in there, right? So while on paper that looks cool, but listen, I'd also say that maybe Hortiz doesn't do anything. Like the Oweh trade was transformational in the way that it allowed the team to hit 11 wins last year, and he's walked away for a ridiculous amount of money, right? So in one hand, I'm saying that maybe he doesn't have the ability to close out deals. In the other, I say that he did the Oweh trade. However, that was with his bum buddies in Baltimore. He hasn't sort of done too much outside of it's sort of too much outside of that Baltimore sort of bubble just yet. So yeah, it's really fascinating. And you're right in saying, Andy, that the New England Patriots went all in with a rookie quarterback. We never did that with Tom Telesco. You've got Mike McDaniel, who hopefully you'd argue that the scheme is going to protect Justin Herbert just as much as the offensive line is. I don't know why we haven't spent. How much was it, Alistair, that Tao pointed out? Was it
it's 28.5 if you remove some of the mumbo jumbo money. Let's just call it a lot of money to spend.
Do you, Alistair, do you think Hortiz is done? Like, honestly, or are we going to see a draft night that is just going to wrap all this up? It's the finishing touches on this gastronomic dish that's incredible. We walk out and go, holy crap, like this season is ready to go. Like, what's your gut feeling?
My gut feeling is we're all going to be sitting here before week 1 a lot happier than we are right now. Way happier. Because I do think they've made it pretty clear they want a great player to come in and be a speed threat. When you're going for Alec Pierce and Rashid Shaheed, I don't necessarily think they're done yet. They haven't got the guy they wanted to upgrade the offense. And we did hear that QJ is potentially a trade candidate. So there is a lot of time between now and post 1 June cuts heading into training camp. I say watch this space. And that's why I'm a little bit loath to judge at this point in time, because I think the right time to judge is at that point. Then you can say, were we too conservative? Were we too aggressive? Maybe he'll trade down in round 1 in the draft, collect an extra pick. We'll have 6 picks. We'll do a trade in June. There's still a long time left, Chargers fans. So I don't know. I understand the frustration, but to me, it's still too early based on his past history of making moves all throughout the year. That's where I land.
And Andy, how do you feel, right? Because sometimes we as humans forget about what has been past and we just focus on the last 12 months. Tom Telesco would be like, he would make some big flashy signings, but would let people like Adrian Phillips walk, good special teamers and things. I mean, Josh Harris is returning. Who else? Like Dean Leonard is back. Delshon Phillips is back. These guys that they do win you games. You don't see them, but you don't necessarily see them on the stat sheet either or the PFF grade. But these are the guys that actually play depth throughout the season, come in and perform at a level that's better than if you spend a lot of money on guys that are injured, right? So, like does that play into your thinking about whether we're judging Hortiz too harshly?
For sure. Absolutely it does, because like I sort of alluded to, the low level moves that he does the outcome is often better than expected. And the way that the difference between, I think, Hortiz and Telesco is Hortiz has a clear plan and he has a clear MO and the way that he approaches it. And you look at some of these guys that he's signed that have been cut. We've mentioned plenty of them earlier, but Keaton Mitchell, most recently, another Baltimore guy, but he was a non-tendered restricted free agent from Baltimore, so doesn't count towards the compensatory free agent. It's just another one of those things. And now we get 4.37 speed out of the backfield to pair with Hampton and Ingold. Like, it's those small moves. He's got $5 million guaranteed over 2 years with a $3.125 million cap hit in year one. So while we criticize the non-moves, what he does do on the whole is good and performs better than expected, I think, barring the likes of Mekhi Becton et al. But
let me ask the question this way, Andy. You can get into of the outgoing players on our list, the guys we decided to let walk: Zion, Odafe, Tito, St. Just, Solia. For the prices the acquiring teams paid, their contracts, do you look at any of those and go, oh, we definitely should have kept that guy for that price? Start with the big ones. What about Zion and Oweh? They're two guys. Some people wanted Zion. Some people said, how do you let Oweh leave the building? Was that the right call, Andy?
Oweh was a tough one for me because I thought he performed really well when he came in, and then he puffed his stats up with the 3-sack game in the playoffs. And so that made it look like he had a double-digit sack a year, and it was a lot better than it was. For me, that the whole way across was this is going to get me a comp pick. This trade mid-season is going to land me a comp pick in 7 months' time. So I kind of understood. I wasn't emotionally attached to that. $25 million a year, Commanders can have him, to be honest. Johnson, $16.5 million a year was above what I would have kept him for. Guys, St. Juice going.
Didn't we give him that money? Didn't we give him that money and he said, no, I'm walking?
Allegedly. I think our friends at Guilty as Charged got some intel that might have been the case. We can't verify that. But those are the rumors out there.
I interrupted you.
No, all good. On the sort of the bottom end of things, Tyler Conklin doesn't bother me. Solia, look, I'm just really interested to see what he could have been in this offense, but he goes across to the Dolphins. Hand, 1 year, $3 million. Look, like I said, I thought he performed really well last year, and now we've paid Tomlinson, who's, they played with each other at Alabama, and they fought for a spot at Alabama in that 2015 championship run. We've just spent a lot more money on a guy that's had some down years through the back end of his year, and Deshaun Ham was good. Benjamin St. Juste departure, when I look at the cornerback room, I now kind of feel like we need something else.
Yeah, we need a corner now all of a sudden.
It's weird. Yeah. I would have thought St. Juste is at average replaceable, but now I kind of feel like there's a bit of a hole there, which is odd. But look, I think it's all pretty much as expected. I didn't kind of really expect us to pay overs for any of those guys. What do you think about
think we did the right thing? Jack, do you feel the same way? Any of those where you would have done something differently?
The only one, no, Oweh, I agree. That's a lot of money for a guy that was on a prove it deal. Zion Johnson, I had seen enough from him. I didn't really want him back. Lovely guy, I think, and all the power to you in Cleveland. All the others, yeah. The one that stings a little bit was Jamari Solier. I mean, we are very thin up front. There's a lot of consistency there, and I always remember Jamari Solier being pretty light on his feet and quite agile for a big guy. So I kind of thought that might translate quite well into a McDaniel scheme, getting out and have the one thing that he really struggled with was generally sometimes pass protection and just the power of sort of absorbing some of those hits. So I thought maybe if he was given a bit more freedom running downhill, running wide and getting out in front of the ball carrier. And he is so versatile because I was looking at his draft profile a couple of days ago, and he'd played all spots along the line. And it's just that versatility. And you know what? I'd rather Jamari Solier than I would Trey Pipkins personally, and that's just me personally. So yeah, that's one thing that I would go, that stings for me.
Fair enough. I trust McDaniel to have made a call in his own scheme. If it makes you feel any better, Saulier's RAS is like 3.5, very poor athletic testing. Penning is up at 9.6 or something.
Yeah.
And Pipkins is quite high. Maybe he thought one is better for his scheme than the other. Just for a bit of a humorous comment, listeners, we sometimes make a bit of fun of Move the Sticks podcast and some of the commentary of Bucky Brooks, but he did say something really quite funny about the Odafe Oweh signing. They were talking about the fact that he got $100 million, which is a lot of money for a guy who I think has only had 10 sacks once in his career. And Bucky Brooks said, yeah, it's one thing to be Robin, but now you're being paid to be Batman, right? And then Jeremiah goes, actually, he was basically the third rusher. He came onto the field in NASCAR packages. The first and second were Mack and Tooley. And Brooks goes, you telling me he's Alfred? So he's got to go from Alfred to Batman. I thought that was excellent and summed it up. That's a big risk. $100 million to pay this guy to be a star rusher. All right, so there.
I thought he might have gone Batwoman, but Alfred's an interesting one. Yeah,
not bad. So they're the outgoing players. I basically feel the same. I mean, I'm a bit questionable. I'll say quickly, the approach to defensive tackle has surprised me a little. How you had Poona Ford, and then because he got a huge contract, you went with Deshaun Hand and Caldwell because they're cheap. But this time, Hand played well, and you've actually replaced Hand with a guy who's twice as expensive in Tomlinson. Yeah. So I'm a little bit confused. I thought at that price, you just bring in the guy who's already known in the room and knows your coaches and did a good job. They go with a guy with a much higher draft pedigree.
Yeah, well, it suits the philosophy, doesn't it?
It does. Second round pick. And look, to be fair, the story of Tomlinson is for 6 years as a Giant and a Viking, his PFF grades average between 75 and 81. We're talking about a great player. Then he has 2 years in Cleveland at about the 61 to 67 mark average. And then in the Cardinals, the last year, he's just bombed out and had a 49 PFF grade season. Is he getting worse because he's getting older? Or has he just been in a bad system? We're all going to find out together.
Well, you're looking at a real swing at durability, right? Like he started his college career quite injured, redshirted, and then missed the next year. But he's missed 7 games and started 142 in his 9 seasons in the league. So, look.
Please, just don't say that. We said that about Najee. We said that about Najee Harris. And then he explodes a damn firework in his face.
And then his Achilles explodes.
God, 12 months is a long time. I'd forgotten about all that.
But I must admit, though, like if there's one position group that throughout the last 24 months, you'd expect a veteran player coming in to perform above what he's being paid for, it's got to be defensive tackle. It has to be. There's no other position anywhere else that we've had just guns coming in. You're like, Poona Ford, oh, geez, is he going to come in? Comes in and gets paid $30 million. Hand is great. And we signed Tier Tart, who's been exceptional. So if we're going off a pattern here, we've been taking essentially UFAs or later round guys coming in, they're playing at a second or third round level. You think that if we're bringing in a 32-year-old guy that was picked in the second round and has played in his career very, very well, you'd think that ceiling is a lot higher. Hence, maybe if I was Tomlinson's agent, that's why I'd be trying to make a deal that's a little bit more than what we've used to expect seeing at the nose tackle, defensive tackle position. And that's the way that I'd frame it. And hopefully Chris O'Leary, who's the defensive line coach? Who is that?
Mike Elston.
Mike Elston
has done a very good job.
Exceptional job. So I'm actually quite bullish on the Delvin Tomlinson, and it gets me excited to see a big man again. He's a big boy, Tomlinson. Oh, well, he's a big boy.
What this sort of like hodgepodge arrangement of the defensive interior has been a bunch of guys that probably like 3 years before we brought them in, Poona Ford, Teatart, 3 years earlier, I would have gone, I'd like that guy on my football team. And I kind of feel like they're late. The Chargers have been a little late to the party in getting these guys in their twilight. And Tomlinson's, from how you reported the PFF grading and how his career's sort of, past the age of 30 gone down a little bit. It's always worked, or it has worked so far. These guys have played at a high level. So, Jack, I agree with you. I don't think, with Mike Elston staying, I don't think that there's going to be too much of a dip or a potential dip in the defensive line play with O'Leary taking over from Minter.
You don't think we're going to really struggle at edge?
Sorry, I'm talking interior.
Oh, like interior.
Well, edge is now a position where we need some kind of focus through this draft, to be honest. Because
this is fascinating. This is
Mac
where
was 5-6 games last year. No Oweh.
I know everyone wants the team to get another weapon for Herbert or an above-average starting guard. For what it's worth, I think we'll find a left guard being signed in the next few days before the draft. I think you are going to see Wyatt Teller or Joel Bitonio or James Daniels. I think they will get their left guard.
Yeah.
But on the defense, so far they've done nothing. And you've lost a corner. You've lost Oweh. You've decided not to really upgrade the linebacker spot when there were some guys out there like Nakobe Dean and Leo Chanel. So is that where this splash is going to come? We're all talking about maybe a wide receiver or something. Are you talking Jalen Carter? Are you talking a 3 technique, a big name that gets everyone out of their chair? And I shudder to think what will happen to Jack if we sign Jalen Carter.
I was going to say, be careful.
The
kettle is boiling.
Because I'm with you. I think the team needs to work on defense, and you don't have that many picks in the draft, and they're going to be rookies. You're trying to win a Super Bowl. I think some work needs to be done.
Especially when you know that you're more than likely going to have some kind of regression from where it was with Coach Minter. First time for Chris O'Leary calling defensive plays in the NFL. Sure, he's been around a bit of stuff, but still young and inexperienced, and there's going to be learning curves and stuff. You don't want to have too much responsibility laying on, a 2-down edge rusher that's just in the league. Or Kyle Kennard coming in because you didn't actually replace that, and now you're expecting more from guys that Junior Colson, another one of those guys, unproved. We're all hoping for the best out of guys like that, but
better become senior Colson pretty soon, hey? We've already used that one, but that was a good call that we had to talk about.
That's very good.
I had to share it.
Very good. Okay, so guys, is there anyone else that we want to talk more about in terms of like guys we've signed? Cole Strange, familiarity with McDaniel. We've spoken about the importance of maintaining a lot of that core special teams group with Josh Harris, Dean Leonard, Delshon Phillips. Are there any other ones?
Kendall Williamson was a good one. I like that.
Yeah, but are there guys that are in that not yet known category, the free agents outgoing free agents of the Chargers that you're surprised we haven't signed? Keenan Allen, Tony Jefferson, probably at the top of those lists. Are there any of those guys that you are surprised, or you sort of expected them to be right at the back waves of, the backwash of free agency? Al?
Yeah, I thought they'd be at the back end because simply they don't know what's going to happen in the draft, and I don't think they're in a real hurry to sign either of those guys. With Jefferson, your safety room, if you have to, is Derwin and Elijah, and RJ Mickens, your second-year player, and you've got your tag on Kendall Williamson. What happens if at pick 22, you've got Dylan Thieneman from Oregon sitting there who they thought was going to go earlier, and they just decide, we think this guy's going to be the next Harrison Smith for the Vikings. We can play him center field, safety. I know it's not a sexy pick, but he's best player available. If that happened, I think they just wouldn't sign Tony Jefferson. So I think they're sitting and waiting for a little while with both of them. They're not priorities. And Jack, I kind of feel the same way about Keenan Allen. Fans don't. They want him signed.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, if we do make a splash in the wide receiver room, I just don't think there's room for Keenan Allen. Even if we don't make a splash, I think Trey Harris showed enough last year. I think Trey Harris is going to be sneaky good in McDaniel's system just because he's such a good blocker as well. I think he's going to be quite good. And I want to see KLS on the field as well. The other one I find interesting, and I haven't heard anything about it, so correct me if I'm wrong, is Najee Harris. I don't see Najee Harris being a scheme fit, Al, for Mike McDaniel as a thumper in the middle. I'm not sure if he's got the outside speed to play there, especially with the addition of, what's his name, Keaton Mitchell there. Tucker Fisk, we've got upgraded to in Kolar. I don't think, I mean, he might be the practice squad. Andre James would be an interesting one to see if he stays around. Obviously, Marcus May, Tyler Conklin, they're kind of, well, Conklin's moved on anyway. So, no. But yeah, the one I found interesting was Denzel Perryman. Just, I know he's a guy that we signed, but like, what's he good for? Maybe 6 to 8 games this year. And then behind him, then you've got Coulson, and you've got, what's his name?
Henley.
And
Henley, Delshawn, Wax.
Henley, Delshawn, yeah. Marlo Wax, yeah. I guess also we re-signed Trey Lance as well, which is interesting. Interesting to see what Mike McDaniel does with him, if there's any packages that he actually might come in and use his legs on. That'd be a fascinating. We've always wondered if an offensive coordinator would take Justin Herbert off the field. Do you take your best player off the field? Maybe, maybe not. But yeah, Andy, anything from you that we haven't covered?
No, look, the details on Trey Lance's contract will be interesting because it's 1 year, 6.7 up to 6.75, and he played on $2 million last year. And I don't really think that there's any reason why we should be offering more than that. So hopefully it's those kind of incentives that are not likely to be met, so it doesn't come anywhere close to that. Yeah, there's nothing too, crazy for mine. Al, are there any of those free agents the non-moves that the Chargers sort of let go of players that you thought would be a really good fit? Some of the guards that signed elsewhere, defensive players, running backs.
Yes, you know I liked Leo Chanel, and the Commanders signing him for 3 years, $24 million. That looks tasty to me, but I think that whole compensatory pick thing I said earlier factors into why we didn't do that. I understand why people don't get the decisions not to hand out one of those contracts to either Isaac Sayamalu, the guard from the Steelers, who signed for 3 years, 31.5 with the Cardinals, 10 a year. Older player, but still, that's affordable. And same on Vera Tucker and Jenkins. They're both elite talents who are coming off very serious injuries. And I think the Chargers just thought Vera Tucker has 21 mil of it guaranteed. Elton Jenkins has 20 million guaranteed. They just didn't quite want to do it. But if you're listening to this and think they should have done that because of all the cap space, it was worth the gamble, even if it becomes Mekhi Becton again. I get it. I get why you're frustrated. And I'll circle back, Jack, because I never really answered it. Guards in McDaniel's scheme. I mean, I think he's answered the question so far, and it stands to reason if you look at this scheme, which generally attacks outside the tackles more often than in between them. Guards are really useful in gap schemes when your run is designed to pull the guard and run behind the guard in between the tackles, whether it's counter or power or trap. But in the outside and wide zone world, it's not so bad. Oftentimes they've either got a combo block with the center, or they've just got to kind of move out in space and get the right angle to make sure the running back can get outside them. So I think in the running game, maybe that does make sense. People will say, well, you still got to pass the ball, don't you? And we saw what happened to Herbert last year. And that's where you just hope McDaniel's going to throw a lot of screens and get the ball out quick and move the pocket.
But you know what
friend of
happens
the
when you can
podcast-
generate a good run game. Sorry, Jack. You know
Yeah,
what
that
happens?
too.
You put the defense on the back foot, so it makes pass protection easier, in a sense.
And friend of the podcast asked offline in our group chat, are there any All-Pro or Pro Bowl guards that you can name from a Shanahan McDaniel scheme in the last 8 years? And I went back and you look at him and you go, no, not really. What you could do is you could also name an All-Pro tackle generally that's there. So, and as I said earlier, alluded to earlier, that Mike McDaniel is walking into 2 possible All-Pro tackles. It'll be interesting to see if Slater's ready to go and whether maybe that's why we signed Pipkins. The only one for me, Andy, the guy we didn't sign was Alec Pierce. I really like him. He could be really sexy. A lot of people thought, and when he was drafted, he's just a burner. I thought this year, looking at him and looking at his highlights and watching some of those indie games, that he actually became a little bit more of a crisper route runner, and he actually added some stuff to his game to sort of, whether he's a true number one receiver, I'm not too sure, but that price tag with as over 80 million, 84 million guaranteed, that's big money to pay to someone that is kind of just emerging. If you're for me. So yeah, Alec Pierce was the one that I would have loved, but for that price point, I would say no.
Yeah. Would have been nice. I agree with you completely. I was probably more in the Rashid Shaheed camp than Alec Pierce, just for that kind of that speed. Obviously, it was going to be the next tier down kind of contract. I thought I didn't completely hate the Mike Evans deal with the 49ers. I think that's a nice workout for both parties.
What do you get? 3 years something? Yeah.
Yeah. So about 14 a year.
Guaranteed. Yeah.
Okay.
That's 16 guaranteed. So
okay, it's only 1 year guaranteed.
So it's probably see how we go after this year and then cut ties if we have to with minimal dead cap. Guys, have we answered the question? Do you think we've got the fan base with a better understanding of the plan and how the approach to the first week of free agency and everything that we've done with, guys that have been cut is working towards protecting Herbert and making life easier on Herbert? Do you think that there's a clear cut? Are you laughing like?
Well, we'll have to ask the fan base if we've convinced them. What I'll say to the fan base is, if you're angry right now, what I want you to do is hop on YouTube, give us a like and subscribe first, and then leave in the comments. Tell us, because we want to read it. Tell us exactly what you would have done. It's one thing to say we should be spending more money. Tell me the contracts that were signed by another team where you say that is what we should have done. And there might be a couple we agree with you, but just remember, you also need to make the numbers work. You can't just throw 3 or 4 or 5 names with us. There's about 28.5 million in real cap space for 2026 right now. Tell us how it should have been spent or how it should still be spent. I know there aren't that many names left out there.
Well, why don't we quickly do that and have a bit of an audible? Like, have we given grades to the signings? That's one thing we haven't done on the show.
Okay. Could we
do like a gut check? Could we, Andy, if you wanted to run through them and just go from Khalil Mack and Tyler Biadasz, and maybe we don't have to give grades on every single one of each of us, but maybe we just go through and have
we can red light, green light them if you want.
Yeah. And then fans.
You're talking to the teach man. He needs to give grades, brother.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then the fans can do it as well. Like, if you're listening and you've got all the signings, it'd be interesting to see where our grades end up and yours. That'd be fascinating.
For sure. Okay, so we'll start with Khalil Mack. 1 year, 18 million, fully guaranteed. Exact same terms as last season. What say you?
I'll go. I'm doing C+.
Okay. Do you want to explain why?
For me. Saying, I guess, you're paying the exact same money. The cap's gone up, so actually it's not the same amount of money. It's less than the cap. But I just don't know how many times he can go to the well. I think he's great for leadership, and I think it's going to be really good for Chris O'Leary to have him there. He's a great locker room presence. But yeah, C+. Like, proficient, great, good, but I'm not expecting too much out of him personally.
Yeah,
C+.
I'm very happy he came back. I can't fault that signing, so I'd give that a higher grade because the price was about right, and I think he sets a hard edge, and 1 more year makes sense. So good move for me.
Yeah, I'm in the B+ areas. I think it allowed the team to let Oweh go, and everything that follows from that. Alec Ingold, fullback from the Dolphins, obviously 2 years, $7.5 million, 3.56 guaranteed. Jack, what do you say?
I'm calling that an A- because we don't really have to see Matlock anymore.
Yeah, nice.
That's a very good answer. I'm going to go the same, and it's more of these high character guys. 3-time Walter Payton Man of the Year, does work with child welfare advocacy, knows McDaniel's scheme, was with him all 4 years in Miami. It just makes sense.
Ticks a lot of boxes for sure. Charlie Kolar, actual free agent signing that goes against the Zion departure.
You start us here, Andy.
I'm going to say I absolutely love this. I think I was surprised by the numbers. 3 years, $24.3 million with 17 guaranteed, because I know his role is going to be that blocking tight end, allowing Gadsden to be the move in McDaniel's scheme. But he's also been a sneaky red zone threat for the Ravens over his time, so here and there. So I'm going to give this... I think I'll give it an A. I like the way that they've back-ended the deal as well, and I think he's going to be a super valuable... It's an upgrade on Fisk, just in the way that Ingold is a massive upgrade on Matlock. Like, it's making those small positions in the team seem far more professional than they were last year.
Yep, I'm going A+ for all of those things. I think it is, out of all the signings we've done, it is the best scheme fit. I think he's going to turn into one of the, under McDaniel, who'll be the best blocking tight end. If not, he'll be top 3 rather than top 5. He's 6'6", 260. He's a huge man. And gives a bit of grunt. I think he's going to get a little bit of a nasty edge to that tight end room that we need, because Gadsden is more of that move tight end, as you said, Andy. So I'm giving this was my favourite signing, A+.
Favourite signing for me too. And I'm glad we've got at least a few minutes to be positive on this show, listeners. Do yourselves a favour and watch some of Charlie Kolar's blocking highlights. I'm going to spew some stuff out there. We paid a lot for him because other teams wanted this guy. He is athletic. He was the 3rd most athletic tight end in his class, according to NFL Next Gen Stats in 2022. He's got 34.5-inch arms, so longer than an offensive tackle's. Read some of this from his blurb. 2021 William V. Campbell Academic Heisman winner, son of 2 professors at the University of Oklahoma. Outstanding student with excellent work habits, premium size and length measurements, soft hands, rarely ever drops the on-target throws. Personnel executive for an AFC team said he might end up being another Mark Andrews. I reckon there's untapped potential in this guy who is behind Andrews and Likely, and that's why they've paid a bit more. I think they see a run-blocking tight end plus, and maybe we end up loving this guy as a Charger. I certainly hope so.
Nice. Re-signing Trevor Penning, I guess, is one of our moves coming in. So 1 year, 4.5 guarantees, not yet confirmed. Do you like the depth move, Jack?
Yeah, I'm going to go B-. The reason why it's not in the C range is because I think I am super intrigued to see his athletic profile in a McDaniel's scheme. And the times when he gets his hands on people and he's nasty, he's very effective. Just don't put him on an island and ask him to block at a left or right tackle. He's terrible. So I'm going to go, I'm putting him in the B range, low B, B- for me.
Same as Jack. I'm fine with it. Of all the guys to bring back, I actually think this is the one that makes sense on the interior.
Totally.
He's your backup guard. He's super athletic, and he's got a mean streak.
Swing in a pinch.
That's good. Yeah, I'm happy with it.
I totally agree. We'll go to Cole Strange. Familiarity with the Dolphins, probably a reach for a first-round pick back in 2022. The Chattanooga Choo-Choo. Cole Strange, 2 years, $13 million, 9 of that guaranteed. Another, will earn double what he'll earn in year 1, in year 2.
Al, what do you think? Grade?
Hard to give this more than a C for me. Yeah, he hasn't had a good career so far. You're banking a lot on what Tau837 pointed out, which is he had one of those dreaded patella tendon injuries in the last week of 2023. And if you look at his PFF grades in the first half of 2025 versus the last half, In the final 7 games, his PFF average grade was 64.5, which was higher than Zion's. So maybe his best football is ahead of him in his second year in Mike McDaniel's scheme. That's optimistic, though.
Cool. Last one I'll do is just a little bit more on Keaton Mitchell. So, undrafted free agent from Baltimore. He's 24 years old with 4.37 speed. 2 years, 9.25 million, 5 guaranteed. Jack, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts, and people might come at me for this. I think this is a C move. I look at it and go, "Oh, this is great, cool, quick guy." But this screams to me J.K. Dobbins times 2. I look at a guy with the injury history that he has, and I go, "Yeah, it's." Listen, hey, we got to think that C is proficient. C is good. C means
okay, because I'm getting the vibe that you either don't own one of his cards or haven't played with him on Madden before.
No, it's something that I'm not. I don't play Madden anymore. I don't have time, but I do collect a lot of cards though. But no, I'm just saying it's a C. It's proficient. It's at standard. It's good. It's fantastic. So yeah, I'm not going to get too excited. Keaton Mitchell is a C for me.
Yeah, C is satisfactory. Yeah, I'm excited as well, but I'm excited about what it could be. But as Jack has said, he's had one ACL tear, and then when he came back last year, towards the back end of the year, he had a knee strain and missed the rest of it. Otherwise, we're talking about literally the fastest back in the entire NFL in average miles per hour, most carries reaching 20 miles. He's the fastest guy in the whole NFL, and we've just handed him to Mike McDaniel. Imagine if he stays healthy.
He does offer return capacity as well, as he has across his 3-year stint with the Ravens. Yeah, I'm B+, A- areas with this. Not expecting too much. I just think that his speed will suit well in the scheme, and it'll complement the rest of the running back room, and it's just another layer, which is exciting. Guys, anything else before we move on to maybe some league-wide winners and losers through the free agency period to cap off the show for the week? Anything else?
No. Gone through, emptied out all the notes. Been too good. We've been on fire.
All right, start us off with some winners and losers then.
Sorry.
Jack.
Jack wants to get me off my notes. Let's go.
I have one question for you. Okay. If we're talking of levels of grade, so Andy it was a good example. That's why it's coming to my head. What is Mike McDaniel worth on players on the overall offense? If you had is he worth half a grade more? Is he worth a whole grade more? Is he worth 1.5, 2? So we're talking players like QJ, for example, right? I don't know what you give him last year. You might give him a B. Is Mike McDaniel the guy to turn him into an A? So, how valuable is Mike McDaniel? If I was to say to you in that, you can use any analogy you like, but how valuable is Mike McDaniel?
I'll use an analogy. He is more valuable to the offense than Jesse Minter was to the defense. Whatever you thought of Jesse Minter, Mike McDaniel will be more so than that. He is, if not the best play caller in the league, he's definitely top 5. I think he's more like top 3. If you look at what he's done with a quarterback who I would describe as limited and a GM I would also describe as incompetent. And I thought he made Miami as relevant as they've been since Dan Marino. I think you're going to give him Justin Herbert and all these weapons and Amari and Hampton and Slater and Alt and Gadsden and oh my God. Okay. I'm excited now. Let's go. Bring on week 1.
Oh, all right. Well, perfect way, Al. Jack, I'll throw to you just so Al can cool off, get the ice out of the freezer. Winners and losers from around the league. What have you got?
Okay. I've got a weird one to start.
I wouldn't expect anything different from you.
A weird winner is left-handed quarterback glove companies in Atlanta, because Tua Tagovailoa signed with the Falcons. They've got Michael Penix Jr. I would also say the winner is whoever the contractor is that gets to change all the doorknobs at the Atlanta Falcons facility from right-handed to left-handed ones. So there's going to be left-handed gloves to boot. It's going to be booming business down there at Atlanta. So that's my first winner of the off-season of 2026. There you go.
That's
a
great.
good one. That's a good one.
I'll jump in, Andy, because I'll turn the same team into one of my losers. And my loser's Kevin Stefanski, because you feel like this guy thinks he's just escaped Cleveland, a poorly run organization. All of a sudden, he's got to deal with this awkward Tua versus Penix thing, where Penix isn't going to be feeling great about that. The organization brought him in with such a high draft pick. They've also decided to lose Tyler Algier and some other good players. They bring back Austin Hooper, who I don't think's that good anymore. And they've got no first-round pick in this year's draft because the previous regime traded it to the Rams so they could take James Pierce Jr., whose career is now probably over because of off-field misdemeanors. So, I don't know. Kevin Stefanski can't get a job at a stable franchise, and I think it's going to hurt him on this run like it did in Cleveland.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very good point. My first winner, Daniel Jones, an Achilles tear in December, really pulled the handbrake on that sort of career resurgent season that he was having with the Colts, and it threw his market value straight up into the air. Anthony Richardson requests a trade and kind of puts the Colts in a pretty tough situation, so they put Jones on the transition tag, and no first-round picks this year or next after the Sauce Gardner trade. No option left for the Colts but to essentially let Daniel Jones write his own check. And he's got 2 years, $88 million, 60 of it's guaranteed for the big fella from Duke. And we don't
returning from a torn Achilles.
We don't even really know when the guys are going to come in and play. But yeah, good on you, man. It's like the Kirk Cousins way of just generating guaranteed income, really, except Kirk Cousins was healthy for most of it.
My next one is another strange one. I've done all weird ones. I got some good ones, but this next one is the Bay Area Electromagnetic Field Truthers alongside the tinfoil hat injury theorists. Because with Mike Evans leaving Tampa Bay to the 49ers on a 3-year, $42 million deal with 16 and a bit guaranteed, there's going to be some interesting, what's going on here? Is it the electromagnets flying in the air that's causing the Achilles to snap? It's going to be fascinating to see what the 49ers do. And we know that Mike Evans, in the later in his career, is injury prone. So there's going to be theories flying about the Bay Area and whether they need to move their training facility or not. So there you go. There's another off-season winner with the Mike Evans.
That's so good. And I like the Trumpian dialogue at the start, your little monologue of, yeah, I've got a lot on my list. Actually, not bad. There's some good ones. There's some great ones. Some funny ones. Thanks.
Some ones you'd never think of.
They're the best. Could be the worst. Andy, I'm going to go back to you because I another loser for me is the Colts. I don't know what those guys are doing. I think Chris Ballard probably spent so long convincing ESA Gordon that
Charlie.
Daniel Jones is the guy that they missed the opportune time to pivot. Where the guys, like you saw the season kind of blow away, the guy's done his Achilles. And there are guys out there like Kyler Murray available for $1.5 million for a year.
Yeah.
Or even Tua for a year and a half. And they've kind of doubled down on, they've gone with the all-in strategy. They've paid the world to Alec Pierce. They lose Michael Pittman and Kwity Paye and Braden Smith, a long-time right tackle. Do they really think they're a team who are going to contend for a Super Bowl with, like, the record of guys coming back from a torn Achilles at quarterback so far hasn't been great. It certainly affects your mobility. And I don't think Daniel Jones has played more than 6 good games in his whole career. So I think Ballard's going to be out the door and that they've really made a bad call here. And they think they're on the precipice of the Super Bowl and they're on the precipice of to nowhere in particular. So Colts are a big loser for mine.
Yeah, nice. That's a good point. And I think I agree with you. I think if Daniel Jones is going to be a winner of mine, then the people who pay him that guaranteed money kind of have to fall into the loser category, And so, yeah.
Who are they competing with? Nobody. Themselves. Like, who out there would honestly be lining up to give Daniel Jones
$80 million.
anything like that amount of money coming
million
off
a
his
year.
Achilles?
Yeah. Absolutely wild. Absolutely wild. One of my losers, and it's a tough one coming off a Super Bowl win, but Seattle Seahawks are finding themselves in just a run of, as most teams do, with success. There's free agents, you can't pay them all, but how much of a drop-off will the losses of Kenneth Walker, Boye Mafe, Kobe Bryant, Reek Woolen impact Mike McDonald's team heading into their Super Bowl hangover? So I'm concerned. They're big names that they weren't able to hang on to, and yeah, it's a competitive. I think the Rams have got better, and the 49ers. It's going to be interesting for the Seahawks next year.
I have another winner. It's always fascinating when you look at society and you look at social classes throughout the ages and where there's mobility and things. But there was one, if we're talking about the NFL as a sort of a social entity, the winner of the off-season is centers, because they are now a new social class within the NFL. Linderbaum's deal with the Raiders, I think it's sort of the top of the center market was about 18 million, and now it's jumped to about $27 million a year. So that's more, or around a 50% increase. I can't remember the last time there was, outside of a quarterback and an edge, I can't remember a contract like this resetting an individual positional market like it. Wait and see what the Raiders do with it, but I have a feeling that they're going to draft a quarterback at number 1, Alistair, and Tyler Linderbaum is going to be his best friend. So I whilst it was, creating a new precedent, I think that's a pretty good deal. A bit rich for me with where the Chargers are at. But yeah, well done, Tyler Linderbaum. Just goddamn money, man. Goddamn money.
Got the bag.
I'm going to give a winner out. I'm going to hand out a winner to Kyler Murray for getting out of town and getting the chance to be the next Sam Darnold, because I think he's got all the talent in the world. He's been a laughingstock. He signed that massive extension back in 2022. He had that independent study clause that made him a source of ridicule. That clause actually, I looked it up. It said he had to do 4 hours of film study per week, and it explicitly forbade him from playing video games or watching TV during those same hours. That's not great that had to be an express clause in your contract. But anyway, he does his ACL, has a good year in 2024, but then in 2025 he hurts his right foot, and then the Cardinals were like, nah, you say you're healthy, but we're leaving Brissett in. This is your chance. You're with a quarterback whisperer, Kevin O'Connell. You've got Justin Jefferson to throw to and Jordan Addison, and you've got Flores on the defensive side making magic. So this is your chance, and you're either going to take it and fulfill your potential, or you're going to be back playing Call of Duty in your mum dungeon pretty soon. Actually, he'll be in a very large, lavish mansion in Bel Air, but he'll be playing video games nonetheless if he's not careful. He's my winner, Andy.
Yeah, I had JJ McCarthy as a loser. I know that it's a very budget kind of rental bringing McCarthy in, but golly, the hype around 9 dissipated drastically when they realized he probably can't play quarterback in the pros. Look, for me, I hate to say it, but I really like the way that the Raiders have approached free agency, and I think they're pushing with the New England approach and spending a lot of money, but they are shoring up just about every hole everywhere, and signings like Nakobe Dean and Jalen Naylor is going to be an under-the-radar kind of... They're making the situation for Fernando Mendoza so much better than the situation was for Ashton Genty coming into the league last year, that it is really providing a super positive outlook for those two guys, Brock Bowers. It's really theirs to stuff up. So great free agency period. and they will. And they got Max back.
Quicker than you could say Max Crosby, yeah.
Yeah, quicker than you could say Max Crosby. Gosh. I've got another weird loser. That's Mark Andrews' ego. because the Isaiah Likely contract is wonderfully petty if you actually look at it. Andrew's got a 3-year, $39.3 million extension for Baltimore, and the Giants gave Likely 3 years, $40 million. Likely never having a 500-yard season and not really offering much as a blocker. So I think Isaiah Likely was like, just pay me a little bit more, please. $700,000 more, which is more than I would make in probably 5 years. So anyway, Mark Andrews' ego, a little bit maybe bruised and a bit of a loser from the offseason. There we go.
Nice, Jack. I'm going to end with one winner and one loser. My winner, surprisingly, is Junior Colson. Some might disagree because they might think, hang on, he's really going to have to fight for a spot in training camp, and I get that perspective. But on another view, they had a chance to upgrade at the starting linebacker spot with somebody next to Henley, and they chose to sign an older Denzel Perryman back for a year, who really, if Colson's healthy, he should be able to get out there and beat for a starting spot. And I think he's an under-the-radar winner. They had a chance to bring in a guy, and they chose to stick with their own. So he's my winner. My last loser, diva wide receivers. I feel like the NFL's moving maybe a little bit away from that and are valuing the team guy more and more. At the moment, you've got Tyreek Hill sitting there not being signed. You've got Juwan Jennings still waiting to be signed, who's a very talented player, but comes with some potential, histrionics on the field. Brandon Ayuk still hanging out there, hasn't been signed because of the way he ended in the 49ers. So these are very talented wide receivers with some injury red flags, mind you. Maybe there are more teams now who are worried about those marketing dollars, Jack and Andy, and aren't quite prepared to carry that baggage, even if they're still talented individuals.
Agreed. And I think that's a good trend for the league and those in power to take, and not kind of enabling that ridiculous sort of behavior. Anyway, I'll finish on a loser, and it's Joe Burrow. He thought that Max Crosby was coming into the AFC North, and he was just sat there on that white couch with Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, and the impending nature of Trey Hendrickson's situation. And then Max Crosby, the trade fell through, and Max Crosby was back to the AFC West, and Joe Burrow was feeling good. And then Baltimore went and signed his own Trey Hendrickson, and now he's in for yet another season of utter pain. And whilst the Chargers fans can clamour that perhaps Joe Hortiz hasn't done everything in his power to protect Justin Herbert, Mike McDaniel can do that a little bit more than spending all of this money on guards. But at least we're not Joe Burrow and facing a litany of ferocious men beating down on his crappy offensive line and potentially cutting his career short. Guys, we hope we're all feeling a little bit better about the situation that is in front of Chargers fans, trying to understand what Joe Hortiz is doing. I'm sure there'll be comments that won't, but it's fun it's cathartic to speak it out and try and rationalize a little bit of an idea and a plan. We're going to have probably another couple of weeks off. We will be back at the start of April to get into our pre-draft analysis and conversations, have some chats with our friends over at Guilty as Charged. Al's got a few more hours and days and weeks of tape to burn through, but we thank him for doing it. Better you than us, mate. But until then, guys, take it easy. We'll obviously touch on all of the moves that happen between now and then. When we see you next time, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time on the Thunder Down Under Chargers podcast. Hooroo. Bye.
Backpedals looking, firing, he's got Floyd turning, got it, zigzag, 10, 5, high step, touchdown, San Diego!
Woo! Good night! Good night to all!